I'm staring right now at a 5 to 6 foot alligator. They're just right out my office window on the other side of the pond. It's so cool. I really love being around alligators. It's just, they're doing their thing. We're doing ours. From a safe distance, it's really cool to know that there are gators around. But also, on the other side of that, our fence is being installed today, so that feels good. So the gators, they could come up to the fence, but can't come in the backyard, right? There's not going to be a big dinosaur surprise waiting for us. Ollie, for the first time, noticed this gator. And normally he's just like oblivious, right? He's just ball, squirrel, everything that's in its like immediate vicinity. He hasn't been within 50 yards of a gator, really. But he's noticing this one. And just didn't want to play, he went into full like defense mode, right? Just like something in his senses was just like, oh man, I don't know what that is, but I don't want it over here. Hey everyone, I'm Patrick Jones and welcome to episode 41 of That Gives Me Anxiety. Today our anxiety is caused by fantasy football drafts, so a little bit on the lighter side. Not that this podcast is always so serious, but this is about as low stakes as it gets. Outside of your friend group, because pride is on the line. The ability to talk shit for the next year is on the line. And if you have one of those leagues where people make the last place finisher do something crazy, your dignity is on the line. So to help me out, I have my good friends Alyson Cripps, Matt Morrison, and Hannah Levinson on to talk about their strategies, but they suck too. Gotcha. And I have Joe Camo, who's a fantasy football counselor, who comes on as an expert to give his fantasy football draft advice. And he also talked about his advice for starting a business and working in an area that you love, which is, hey, that's always good advice. So before we start talking about fantasy football, and I can't tell if the fence construction noise is being picked up. If it is, I'm sorry. I'm not really sorry. It needs to go in and I needed to record this. It was just a Venn diagram of things that needed to happen. If you're liking the show, please remember to rate and review it. You can check the show out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Or YouTube, if that's the only one. That's where the live episodes. You can see the nice shirt that I'm wearing. And I wish I could turn the camera around and pick up the gator, but I don't think you'd be able to see it that well. And if you're liking the show and you want to support it and support me, you can make a donation to it through the Buy Me a Coffee link, which is in the description of wherever you're listening. Well, as always, thank you so much for listening and enjoy. Joining me now on the podcast, I have three friends to talk about fantasy football drafts and the anxiety that they cause. Why don't we go around the horn here and introduce everybody, starting with Hannah Levinson, making her, I just called you by, is it still Hannah Levinson or did you change your name?
I kept my name. I kept it.
Okay, all right. You never know, like with friends that you knew before they got married or what's happening.
Right.
Steelers fan. What's your, as we go around here, I guess, give us like one fantasy football fact about yourself, whether it's the draft or what you like to do when it comes to managing your season.
I just want to note I won 2 seasons ago in our fantasy football league, and that was an achievement for me, lifetime achievement for me. I get such bad anxiety. I get the sweats. I have like 20 pages in front of me that I'm gonna like guide my way through the picks, and then I can't keep up with anything just because it's all happening so fast. Mm-hmm. And then my husband's chirping in the background like, I will judge you if you pick your quarterback now. It's just, I have a lot of anxiety.
Because he's also in this league too, which is hilarious of him like being in your ear.
So it always comes home with you.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, going to the Midwest, we have Alyson Cripps. Let's hear, I pretty much know what you're going to say, and it's going to delight me. But yeah, let's talk about your anxiety.
So how I go through my season or the draft is just basically holding on for dear life. I have always been in the bottom three. Well, that's not true. I feel like the second year we did it, like I went from like worst to like very close.
Very close.
I did well.
You won the
But
very close award.
Yes, but I'm typically the one that's like, one of you's gonna lose this year, so one of you better get ready because I'm coming for one of you because I just don't want to get last.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it's the kind of the same thing where it's just like it's the draft. Well, it's the draft that is anxiety, but then it's also like, even week to week, you're like, do I bench this what do I? And then it's like the regret when you made the wrong choice. And it's, I don't want to say meaningless, but like, I get why people get so involved in it because I do too. Like, it feels like I get so stressed out about it when I'm like, is this what we need
this
to
is what's going to do it? Yeah.
Up about this week? Is this it? Okay.
Fair. And then coming over to the Eastern time zone, we have Matt Morrison. What can you say about Matt? It is what it is, kind of thing. I apologize for
That's a powerhouse.
Yeah.
Jersey, stand up. Not always from Jersey, but I'm trying to embrace it. I've got a V-neck on. I don't know if the video is going to be playing here. Ate a piece of pizza earlier today. Just doing Jersey things here. I've been playing fantasy football for a very long time. I lost to Hannah Levinson in said championship a couple of years ago. Fun fact about her, rumor has it that she set her lineup while she was in labor during that playoff run, which I don't know. That's
that deserves a run.
That kind of made me a bit of a legend. Like maybe my face should be bronzed. I don't know.
Yeah. I've definitely not done anything that memorable in my fantasy career. I think for me, a couple years ago, I was in 6 leagues. 1 year I was in 7 leagues. I've downsized it to 4 leagues this year. I think a lot of my anxiety is like too much league anxiety.
That's 7 is way too many.
7 is way too many. 5 is even, I think 3 is like a good sweet spot if you're wanting to do. I got coaxed last year into doing a Reddit league that my cousin set up where everybody paid through like a random protected Venmo. Everybody was random in the league. And like halfway through the year being in last place in that league, having paid $50 and not knowing a soul to text on the side was like, this is some real degenerate action.
Yeah, that is.
It's very greasy.
Yeah.
So it got a little greasy last year, but it's stressful when you have 2 players starting for you in 2 teams and you're playing against those players in another league and you think you're having a good weekend, but in another league, you're having a bad weekend.
Right. Yeah.
But like it's stress. It's anxiety producing.
Absolutely.
All the plate spinning.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious, how do each of you approach the draft? Do you do anything beforehand? I mean, I feel like I don't do anything other than like kind of pay attention to where quarterbacks have wound up and who got injured during the preseason. I like to schedule the draft, after a few preseason games so that like who those early injuries, like who got them.
Yeah, Hannah, I'm like, now that I'm hearing, because Hannah's always, first of all, she's always in like the top 3 or 4. And I'm always like, how is she? I'm like, this bitch every freaking time. And it's always like, I get like amazing picks. And then it's like, I had Saquon Barkley who went out. I had Dax Prescott. Like I get people. And then it's like, I am like, maybe I should stop playing because I'm hurting people. When they're on my team, they're gonna
they go down.
They go down.
Hey, but they're hurting. You know what? But they're hurting you too. They're hurting your bottom line,
right.
So it's reciprocal.
I had the curse of Christian McCaffrey last year. I mean, never again. Trauma.
But I do I definitely try to like, at least for me, like last year, like do the like, okay, I want to make sure like this is the order of the rounds. And so it's like, in this round, you want to get a running back. In this round, you want to get a wide receiver. In this round, you want,
okay. So you like give yourself like a roadmap.
Yeah. Sort of arc to like know who you're looking for.
An arc. Then, I love it. You made it into showbiz. Like, what's my arc? What's my team's arc? We're in season 5 of fantasy football.
Yeah. But then like last year, I think I had like the sixth pick or something. And then it was like, well, if you don't have like the first two picks, like get Travis Kelce immediately. And I was like, done. I'll just like, great. So that was my first pick was Travis Kelce. So
Love that guy.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I try to do research and like have the like names and things written down, but like, Hannah said, it's kind of hard to like keep track of who's gone, who's there, which like position and things that you need to be picking up at certain times. And it's just kind of like watching everything happen all at once. So I try to do research, but I don't know if that hurts or hinders, like if that is helpful or if it hinders me more because I'm like trying to flip through my notes quickly.
I do research, but then I'm such a dirty loyal Steelers fan that I'll just be like, oh, but I love that guy, I'm throwing him on my team. And it's like not always the best. And then if we're having a bad season, it's just a double axe to the heart because I'm losing I'm losing fantasy, and I need to separate those two. You know what I mean?
It's the exact opposite as a Jet fan, where I'm like, no, he wears green, I'm not touching him. What about you, Maddie? I know that you put in the time.
Okay, I do historically I do copious amounts of research, like too much, like mock drafts in late April. May.
You mock draft so much.
Like as soon as the NFL draft is over, it's like, okay, rosters are set, it's fantasy season. But I think that can be a disservice to yourself. Because when you have too finite of a plan and you get to your draft and maybe you have some of the Rich Templetons of the world making crazy or Matt Revere's of the world making insane picks in front of you, your plan goes a little haywire. And then sometimes you panic if things are not going according to your plan. So I'm actually proud of myself. I didn't start doing mock drafts until like 2 weeks ago. I have done very little research. I also am like trying to read less like editorial articles because like you'll have these players you like, and then all of a sudden one guy who you're not familiar with and you have clicked randomly on his article will be like, well, you should draft Melvin Gordon for all of these numbers and figures. And you're like, okay, well, I'm going to draft Melvin Gordon. And then Melvin Gordon is on your team and he has 40 yards a week. And you're like, why did I listen to Gene, who wrote that article?
Right.
I feel like my big thing this year that I'm really going to try to stick to is draft players on good offenses and just leave it at that. Like, I want my Bills, I want my Chiefs, I want my Chargers, I want my Rams. And let's just try not to have players on bad teams. No Bears. This year.
Don't touch the Bears. Yeah, absolutely.
No Bears. Probably not that many Jets, just given the news yesterday. I'm sorry about that.
Yikes.
My condolences.
Hey, I could talk about him like that. All right, come on.
All right, I'm sorry.
What happened yesterday?
Yeah.
The injury action.
Tell the people, Patrick.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson.
He's going to be fine. He'll be back week 1. If not, Joe Flacco is elite. That's a fact.
He's elite and he knows it.
Yeah,
he's the Super Bowl champion.
Exactly, right? Can you take that away? No, you sure can't.
Many moons ago.
Yeah. So I think I'm in a similar boat as you, Cripps, where I try to put together like a template of like where I would like to draft players. Like Hannah and Matt, it sounds like you don't do that. You just sort of roll with the punches.
We're kind of freestyling jazz players.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd rather just take the best player available, because with trades being a possibility, I'd rather have, if I'm not just going to take a position because I feel like I need to, I'll just stockpile another position, then ideally trade to try to like figure out the rest of my roster. Even though people are remarkably afraid of trading.
I was going to say, how often are you trading? I'm like, I trust no one with the trades.
I don't trade either.
Everyone is so scared to get ripped off that nobody trades, which is unfortunate. And that's like every league that I'm in.
Yeah. Well, it's just
I'm just like, what do you know that I don't know?
right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think last
you
year we had
talk
a
to him?
mutiny. There was a trade that went through and we like tried to stop it because
We
we were
did.
so distrustful.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Then the league comes down on you because of collusion fear.
Collusion.
Yeah, absolutely.
No
Yeah.
collusion, not here.
But like going back to what you were saying about people drafting crazy things, it becomes like if you're sitting at a blackjack table with someone who doesn't know what they're doing and like they're hitting in the wrong places, like it messes up your cards. Like it can really like throw you off. And I definitely get angry if someone like does something insane like too early.
Yeah.
So it's not just me, because there are times that I'm like, is this how this is supposed to be happening? I'm trying to follow the rules here and these people.
I think we just played into your worst fears. Of like, I feel like we've always been like, no, don't worry about it. It's just all for fun. But like secretly, it's like these morons are taking.
Guys, I'm gonna draft crazy this year.
I mean, you got Antonio Brown last year, right?
I
think you
Did?
did. Weren't you the Antonio Browner? And I was like, power move. But then things went crazy for him. But
And then he took his shirt off and just kind of said,
yeah,
I'm out of here.
deuces.
Yeah.
I don't think I had Antonio Brown.
Whoever, I could have sworn you did. And I was like,
God, I can't remember. I'd have to look back.
Let's get that league history up and go check out her roster.
yeah.
I know.
Also,
I'm like, I remember that, but God, I just can't remember. I can't remember if he was on my team or not.
Cripps, I will say, per you drafting crazy, unlike the blackjack table, somebody who smells like cigarettes is not going to yell at you for making bad picks.
Right. Exactly.
If anything, I will celebrate it and maybe smell a little bit like cigarettes.
You're also like the immediate after the draft, you're like, I've got it. Like everyone's team sucks. I'm liking my team. Like everyone else that I play with is like, the sky is falling, except Matt is like, this is it, it's done.
No.
No matter what, Matt's like, I crushed it.
Once you're on my team, you're family.
Yeah.
It's a Jersey thing.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely going to trade like half of them. So
no.
Yeah.
You know, once I acquire you via trade, your family, you get traded away. You know, it's like a former in-law.
Well, Cripps also very like interesting, where you will like constantly ask for more time, like the night of the draft, being like, we need to pause it. I still need to think about who I'm getting. Like,
I need I know that. So the rounds, because last year was fine because we were able to it was like 3 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Is that how long the rounds were? Which was doable for me. But with the year before, I think we did it was 1 minute, it was 60 seconds. And I was like, this isn't enough time, because I consider, and I've got someone on the phone. I'm like,
yeah, I've seen you're texting people. We did that live draft that one year in that bar in Brooklyn, and you you were pulling cell phones out of your ass, just being texting lifelines just set up.
Your burner fantasy.
Yeah, fantasy football burner.
Yeah. It's just like a real draft. I got to call my commissioner. I got to check with my head coach.
Sure.
I got to make sure we all want
your PR team.
Yeah. So I do. Yeah. Cause there are people that I'm like, okay, so who do I look for? Who are the things? And again, it's not like they have, clearly it's never helped me that much, but it's the second guessing of myself. And that thing that it's I want someone to make the choice for me. I want someone to be like, yes, this is the right choice, even though it doesn't always work out. You know what I mean? With injuries and whatever it is, the kind of season they have, it doesn't really matter. I feel like last year was my most successful overall draft, because I definitely did less of relying on other people for sure. I just was you know what? This is my thing. You know, I had my friend Jake that I checked in with, and that was kind of it. But I definitely am and I need more time. He hasn't responded. 60 seconds is not enough. But yeah, last year was better, but it was still I was still very sweaty. I was very sweaty.
I'm always sweaty, so I understand.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, speaking of having someone to text or bounce ideas off of, I also interviewed fantasy football expert Joe Camo. And so I think it's a good time to go to that clip. So let me get this straight. In today's day and age, you're supposed to be drinking a ton of water, doing yoga, making sure you and your whole family is happy, strike a good work-life balance, exercise, read books, watch movies, eat healthy meals, be a big part of your community, and get 8 hours of sleep. It's unrealistic. It's too much. Well, that's why there's Instacart to take a little bit off your plate, or help put a little bit on your plate. Oh, I'm so sorry. Using Instacart, you search for all your favorite foods and items that you need from the grocery store, fresh produce, all your favorites, everything you want, and they deliver it to you. They go to the store and do your shopping for you. Just remove it from your to-do list, just with a few clicks. And you'll have your items delivered to your door in as fast as an hour. It's pretty quick. And through the link in the episode description, they're offering free delivery on your first order over $35. But you got to make sure you click the link in the description. That tells Instacart that this show sent you and it helps support the show. And you can also take advantage of the free delivery. So yeah, be nice to yourself. Give Instacart a shot. Joining me now on the podcast, I've got fantasy football counselor and analyst Joe Camo. Joe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is a little bit different. Most of this podcast is about different things that scare us, but fantasy football drafts can be frightening. As I certainly see it in my leagues where people are really anxious and get like all in their heads about, they read a bunch of like cram for it. So it's nice to talk to somebody who's got it down, knows what he's doing here.
No, it's like anything. You just got to be prepared.
Right. Yeah. And I'm excited to jump into that. So why don't we start with you introducing yourself, tell everyone what you're about, what you're working on, all that kind of good stuff.
It started I won't bore you with the whole story, but it started in 2016. I started giving fantasy football analysis on Instagram, cornered that, and I'm number one on Instagram for social media for fantasy football analysis. And I just didn't like the way advice was being given. And then that goes to the anxiety aspect. People aren't given the right information. I think that was the biggest problem. You have these rankings that come out every single year that are consensus rankings, I call them, the consensus rankings, and they're just basically copy and paste rankings from last year. And people just study these and they draft predicated on that order. And I think that's the wrong way of doing stuff. So a couple of years ago, my friend was like getting ready for a draft and he's like, I got anxiety. I'm stressed out. What do I do? How do I prepare for the draft? I'm like, hold on a second. Let me walk through this with you. He's like, okay, what do I do? He's like, who do I draft in the first round? Okay, I think these prospects are good. Who do I draft in the second round? I'm like, well, based on the average draft position, how everyone's drafting, I like these players. Who do I draft in the third round? And I walked them through literally like 16, 17 rounds of who to draft. And then I realized, hey, I think I can help people here instead of actually being there at the draft with you, because I live and breathe fantasy football. I can actually help people draft their team without the anxiety, without the stress, and help them. And that's when I created a 16-round draft solution. And it really, really is the game changer, because it's like I omit all of the players that could potentially bust. I omit all the players that are due for a decline. And I suggest guys that have that upside, guys that are high on the depth chart that are going to give you a good return on investment if you draft them. So yeah, I'm plugging my stuff, but it really, when I call it the 16-round draft solution, it's not a draft kit. It's more of a solution because it's solving a problem.
That's awesome. I mean, I have so many questions about how I myself have screwed up my draft from getting the first or second pick feels like almost a death sentence, right? Like I had McCaffrey in my first overall pick. It's like he's tough to lay off, but in a snake draft and he gets hurt, you got him number one, it's like it feels like your whole team is screwed over. So I'm curious how do you start to break down your draft? What's the first thing that you try to do?
Well, without giving all my secrets, but I'll give you guys as much advice here as possible, is you got to focus on the position that is the most scarce. That's a running back position. Now, we saw last year Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, and Christian McCaffrey bust, right? You're looking at 2022, you might run into that same problem with a guy like Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. What you got to understand is what goes up typically comes down. It's very, and that's the biggest problem that people face is that guy finished on top last year, so they draft him again in that order, but they're not realizing he came off a pinnacle year. So you got to try to secure the most scarce position, which is the running back. So I like to always go robust RB, secure those running backs early, because there's only a handful of those running backs that are going to get the volume, right? So I lay it out, try to secure a couple running backs early if I can, And then I make sure that I have depth at all my positions. So making sure that I have tons of our wide receiver, running back, and even quarterback depth. So there's a full strategy I got, and I talk about that in my solution, but also my videos on YouTube, helping people walk them through. And just don't be overstressed. Don't overanalyze. You don't want paralysis over analysis, right? Because I live and breathe this, I'm aware and I'm fully immersed in it. It's a little easy for me, but don't stress it out too much. But also don't follow the mainstream narrative and start thinking outside the box. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So I feel like I've heard, breaking it down by positions, some people like to have an elite tight end. I've put myself in that category where I'd like to have a top 3 tight end guy. Or is that something that you subscribe to, or are you more just looking to get value and looking at scarcity?
No, tight end, you always wait on tight end. You only have 2 or 3 tight ends that finish at top, and they're producing top 10 wide receiver numbers. You got your Kelsey, who's consistent every year. You got your Darren Waller, who produces pretty well. Mark Andrews had a good year last year. After that, it's a significant drop-off on the other guys, and you can get yourself a ton of value later at tight end. Maybe grab some rookies later on. As long as they get, my rule is like, get 10 points out of your tight end every single week, and I'm happy with that. You want to get your points out of, you want that ace quarterback, you want your running backs producing on a high level. And then you want your breakout wide receivers, which you get value last year. We saw it. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he had a great year. He was off everybody's radar last year. Guys like Jamar Chase, who was ranked, 50th on the consensus ranking. Jamar was in this, I think 30s on the consensus rankings. He finished top 10. You get value at wide receiver. Cooper Kupp was a 4th round pick last year.
Crazy. He'll be a first round next year, right?
He'll be top 5 pick this year, right? Because they had the mainstream all had Robert Woods ahead of Cooper Kupp. And I said, no, Cooper Kupp's the better wide receiver. And, it's all about where you draft those players. So it's about having depth. Don't go with the mainstream and you'll be okay. And then again, that's why the solution, I keep going back to it, is because, again, I study this for you guys and I tell you guys who to draft and I recommend the first round. And again, I don't get it 100% right, but what I do is I'm far more accurate than if you were just to follow the consensus, the mainstream rankings that come out, those magazines that come out, the mainstream rankings. Those aren't going to help you.
Right. Yeah. So you're recommending that people do like a little bit of digging. And also I feel like one of my strategies too is I guess I've bucked depth in the past where it's like, should I take a tight end or a backup quarterback, right? Think the thought process being that like, those are points that I can bank as opposed to something that's going to be on my bench.
It depends on how the draft's going. Depends on what players are available. So if I see a backup quarterback that I like over a tight end that I can get a round or 2 later, I may let that tight end fall to the next round and get the quarterback I really want. So it's really, that's all part of it. You got to feel the draft out, and that's, you got to keep doing some mock drafts, keep mock drafting, get a feel for it and see where players go off so they don't get sniped.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you mentioned you started putting out advice on social media about 5 years ago. What were you doing before that?
It's funny. I was actually a sales rep. I sold hydraulic cylinders and industrial products. People are like, hydraulics, what are those? Are those cars? And they picture the cars jumping. It's actually just dealing with plants, like manufacturing plants, food plants, where people produce product. And whether it be air filters or industrial products or hydraulic cylinders, I sold industrial products and I hated it. And I just decided to create a fantasy frame, which is like a league prize, which I stopped and discontinued ever since. That was back in 2013. I started that. And then I started the podcast in 2016 and just started rolling with it. And I just wasn't happy the way things were going in the industry and the advice. And it's still being given out like that, right? So I'm just trying to get more and more people aware of the solution over just a draft kit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's terrible. And these people do this because they play it safe and they just like, if they get a player wrong, like for example, Najee Harris last year, everyone said, hey, Najee Harris, got to get him, outside the top 10. He was like 14th amongst running backs, finished where top 3-4, right? So it's about thinking outside the box. And I looked at the situation with Najee. I'm like, this guy's going to be the workhorse back, number 1 volume getter. Le'Veon, there hasn't been a good running back on the Steelers since Le'Veon Bell. So what's going to happen is an upside there. And now all of a sudden he had a good year. Now he's top 5, top 10 now. You're riding him now. Why didn't you ride him last year? So you got to think and skate. Like I think Wayne Gretzky said, is skate to where the puck is going.
Right. Yeah. And that is a good point. I wasn't thinking of it like this way. It makes so much more sense for, let's say, an ESPN fantasy football draft guru to play it safe, right? To not look foolish, to keep their job, right? And by not making outlandish claims. So yeah, like doing your own rankings probably would bear a lot of fruit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to think outside the box and project to where things are going to go.
Yeah, that's really exciting. And congratulations on all your success with your podcast and your business. Like what has been some of the most helpful things that you've learned going out on yourself or going out for yourself?
Oh, I mean, if I can give some advice to people is like, you really got to find your passion. And I've learned so much. I mean, it's from editing your own podcast to distributing it, to creating your own product, to branding it, to learning sales and marketing. So I highly recommend that if you love doing something, build it on the side. I recommend try not to work for somebody, because you're left unfulfilled for the most part, unless you enjoy what you do, which is fine. If you work for somebody else, that's great. We all can't work for ourselves. It just doesn't work like that. We need workers. We need people out there working for other people, producing. But if you feel that you're somewhere you're not supposed to be and it just doesn't feel right, follow your heart, follow your passion, and create a product and a service and content around what you love. Because, one thing I've learned is I could never work for somebody else anymore. It's out of the question. I can't imagine it anymore.
Right. That's great. I mean, that's exactly what I'm trying to do with this podcast. My background is media, and I've been in news for like 10 years, and I've learned all these things and helped grow all these other channels. And it's like, why haven't I done this for myself? But it has to be something related to something you're passionate about, So it's awesome that you found what you're passionate about, and you're making content and helping people improve their drafts.
So what are your goals? I mean, I'm turning this around here because I always interview people. So I'm just trying to see the main picture. So it's about anxiety, but are you trying to help people defeat their anxiety? Is that like, what's the main goal here?
Yeah, the whole thing is I have somebody come on who, let's use the example of last week's was social anxiety. So I had someone on talking about their social anxiety, and her and I were talking about times that we've been socially anxious and how it's affected us. And then I have an expert on. In that example, I had a psychologist come on to talk about social anxiety and how to improve it. Yeah, this is all about trying to make the world a little less scary, a little less, make us all a little less nervous, and give us some tools to help make our lives easier.
I read a saying, I can't remember how to quote it, but it's like, sometimes you think you have anxiety, but you're really in an environment that doesn't fit you. So for me, I operate on a higher frequency. So I can't be around people that are down all the time and not, what's the word I'm trying to find? Not motivated, I guess, right? I need to be around people that are highly motivated. So when I'm around people that are with a negative energy, it kind of gives me anxiety. So it's not really me, it's just kind of an environment. Like you go to a funeral, everyone's crying. You naturally are a part of that environment. You're not gonna go in smiling when someone just died, right? So if you're in an environment, it just naturally kind of gives you that anxiety. That's what I found with me. So I got to put myself with other people that are go-getters, because I just cannot associate. And that's where I've disconnected with friends in the past that just weren't, and I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm just saying they're operating on a different frequency, which gave me anxiety. And I probably gave them anxiety because I'm a little too high strung for what they are, what they're doing. So I think that's a big part of it. It's just your environment plays a huge part. So maybe look at the environment that you're in and probably get out of it if you're not feeling good.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's like we are permeable with our environment, right? Like things are flowing through, like energy like that flows through us. Like we can rub off on our environment and vice versa. So it's like, yeah, if you're not happy in a job or relationship or whatever, making a move like that will help your mental health for sure. Well, what do you think is the most important thing that people should know when approaching their draft?
Get 60-round draft solution. I leave it all there. Like there isn't anything. It's the most practical way. But the most important thing is again, depth. Like in a 2-quarterback league, have 3 quarterbacks. In a 1-quarterback league, 2 quarterbacks. You can never have enough running backs, and aim high on the depth chart. So always try to get those guys that are going to produce on a high level. Don't always go for the big names. So example, Cooper Kupp, Odell. Some people may draft Odell, but I'd probably rather have Amon-Ra St. Brown on the Detroit Lions, because he's technically the wide receiver 1. Yet people may draft Odell ahead of Amon-Ra, right? So I like to aim high on the depth chart, get the value, get those guys that are potentially going to break out and have that major upside. You want to get guys that are going to get the volume, the targets, the rushing attempts, the touchdowns, quarterbacks that throw a lot of attempts. So you want to aim high and make sure you get that productivity out of those running backs and out of any position you get.
Awesome. Well, this conversation has been a lot of fun. I just want to check it if there's anything you think I'm missing related to fantasy football drafts or your business or anything else you'd like to mention.
No, just, I mean, line mentality and everything you do. Even though I talk fantasy football, I talk about life things. And I think a lot of people are looking for something better, So I just really encourage everybody who's listening to this, if it's 5 people, if it's 100 people, if it's 1,000 people, whoever you are, that, out of your listeners that want something more, I just think you should just pursue it. If I can make fantasy football a reality, you could really do anything you want. I became Average Joe to one of the top guys in a field that's a $7 billion a year field, with DraftKings, FanDuel, Daily Fantasy, and all that. It's a huge pastime for a lot of people and a huge outlet. So I'll highly encourage people to do what they feel, they need to do to get out of that comfort zone and push yourself. Lion mentality is what I like to preach.
Awesome. And yeah, what's your website again? And where can people find you on social?
So just thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Just Google fantasy football counselor anywhere, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. And we talk about that. There's also the Joe Commercial. I'm starting to get into that a little bit, do a little more interviews as well. And I got some big stuff coming in 2022. You don't want to miss the top secret on that still.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to checking out your advice throughout the football season.
Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Look who we got here. It's our friends at My Software Tutor. Can Excel be my friend? Many people have wondered this for years. The answer is yes, it can. Excel doesn't have to be like the friend that your mom makes you hang out with in elementary school. It's weird. It's always stuff with boogers, right? What's wrong? What's up? Why is that kid always eating boogers? Their house always had the best snacks too. And there he is. Boogers. Well, Excel doesn't have to be like that weird kid. Unless you were that weird kid. Were you? Be honest. I'm not actually asking. I can't hear your response, but And it's okay if you were. Just take it easy with the boogers. Just talking about boogers to get ad read. Don't worry. They didn't write that part. That was an improvisation. My Software Tutor offers 3 levels of real-time Zoom-based courses with a live instructor. They deliver practical, functional business skills in a friendly and supportive environment. It can be daunting, right? You need that supporting environment to learn Excel. There's no stupid questions. It could be really difficult. And as we know, when we talk about it on this podcast all the time, it can be really daunting to learn something new and put yourself out there. So think of this as like a kindergarten for learning something new and helping your job prospects. Or be better at the job you already have. Get that raise, get that whatever, take pictures of it for Instagram. Yeah, that'll be cool. Keeping it as vague as possible so that you can input your own. Just making a mad lib of your own desires. These courses will increase your marketability, whether you're an employee, job seeker, consultant, or contractor. Register at mysoftwaretutor.com and use the promo code POD20 to save 20% off all registrations. Thank you so much to My Software Tutor. Yeah, guys, take advantage of that 20% off and confidently list Excel on your resume. I mean, Joe's got a pretty cool job if it's like he just built this from scratch and gives out fantasy football advice. So it's got to be stressful because I'm sure he gets a lot of like angry tweets and stuff like that.
Totally.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Once upon a time, my friend and I had a fantasy football blog. I forget what we called it, but we were pretty intense and put up weekly videos and then blogged about it every week. And we would like pick our players, and then we had like people tweeting at us, and it was normally like 8th grade boys or something. But I just remember like living in New York, being on the subway platform, and just like stressing out so hard that I was going to ruin this like little boy's life. And it was it was far too much responsibility.
Oh my God, amazing.
I remember it. It was with Michelle.
My friend Michelle, yeah.
Yes,
hey,
yes.
We had a lot of fun doing it. Every now and then we had good picks, and we were like, we're so good.
That's fun. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know like even people who will ask for advice, there's a lot of pressure, right? With someone will like text you like a trade idea or something like that. Like there's so much pressure that like, I know Matt texts a lot of trade ideas constantly.
Sure do. Yeah. It's definitely tough giving someone bad advice.
Yeah.
My old roommate asked me like every year he'll be texting me kind of similarly to the Alyson crowdsourcing picks method. He'll be like, hey, he'll take a picture of the draft board and I'll like tell him who to pick. And I had just a remarkably terrible fantasy season across the board. So like every single player I told Nick Libby to pick last season was just a complete bust. So he must have had a really bad season as a result of me, and that's not good. But also, I on the side as well, I do a little bit of gambling on MMA and UFC. And a couple times I've been like, Patrick, I've got this great spot. Venmo me 50. I send you back 100. Done. He Venmos me, and I'm like, hey, so that girl lost that we bet on. So
this has happened like 5 times.
I will be keeping that 50. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it sucks. It sucks for that to happen.
You should have just lit that on fire, Patrick.
Yeah, I could have just kept that terrible advice to myself and my own bank account, but I am sorry. We're gonna win. We'll win one of these days. Next time I reach out with a hot tip, it'll be
just
really
like a knife salesman, just door-to-door knife salesman.
I can feel a hot streak coming past.
Come on, things got to turn around for old Matty here.
I just need a couple stacks to get back on my feet.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I liked what he said about the paralysis over analysis, that like kind of like freezing, which is why I feel like I'm over analyzing, and then out of fear I feel like I can't make a choice, which is why the 60 seconds for the draft picks is not enough, because I have to freeze for 30 seconds, I have to overanalyze, and then I need the 2 more minutes to like actually do something.
Yeah.
So like, are you fight or flight?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I'm fight, but also there's a lot of things I don't want to deal with.
Right.
Yeah. It's like ordering food at a diner. There's just a lot of options, and you're just going to get a pizza bagel. So just make the pick.
Also, there's only like one good thing to order, but you don't know what it is.
Right.
Right. And the thing is like, I do find the season to be fun and a little less stressful, but like, if this were like a real life thing that I wasn't like wanting to do with like people that I care about, and it is fun. It's a fun way to keep in touch. Like I enjoy it. I really do enjoy doing it. But like if it was a real thing that I had to do in my life, like I would avoid it. You know what I mean? Like the draft would be the thing that I did the day before it was due, because I would be dreading it and trying to avoid doing it at all costs. Like that's I think where it's
book report in school, that you're just trying to put off because you don't want to talk in front of your class.
I'm like, maybe if I don't do it, I'll die and then I'll never have to do it. Like,
sure, yeah.
Like that's comforting to me. And then I'm just like, oh, wouldn't it be great if I just died and then I fall asleep and I sleep good, Like,
you're just on your deathbed, just being like, at least I don't have to draft for fantasy this year.
Yeah.
Literally.
And you'd also probably be commemorated at whatever thing you didn't want to do. So it would be kind of a win-win.
Yeah, you're bronzed also.
Yeah,
exactly.
Perfect. So that's 2 brown faces. Put it on our list of things that we need for our league.
In the Hall of Fame.
Bronzed faces for the Hall of Fame. Thank you.
I'm curious. One of the questions that I had for Joe was about where to draft a tight end. So again, Alyson, I feel like I'm in the same boat as you, where I've liked to try to grab a tight end kind of early to have, because the difference between an elite tight end, most of them are in like this middle couple point a week kind of guys. And then there's like the Travis Kelce's of the world. What do you two think, Matt and Hannah, or Alyson, if you also want to change your answer, just saying that Kelce was a momentary choice that you made last year?
No, he was dope.
Yeah.
Well,
delivered.
Great choice.
I kind of feel like with both I'm usually a wait on tight ends and quarterbacks kind of guy and just stack as many running backs and receivers as I can. But I feel like both positions have in common that it's like you either feel like you're taking one too early or you're like, oh man, I need a tight end or I need a QB, and you bring up the remaining players and you're like, fuck, I blew it. I don't have one this year.
Joe Burrow
So
is
it's
my
like-
fantasy quarterback. Yeah.
Totally. Which, yeah. Or it's like, well, last year I took Darren Waller in several leagues, which you're taking him to give you like essentially wide receiver numbers at the tight end position. So if he is just an average tight end, you're getting terrible value where you're taking
He
him.
was good though last year.
He was good the year before. He kind of was hurt the second half last year. So this is one of those things where I feel like I'm either reaching for one early and regretting it or waiting too late and then being CJ Uzoma as my tight end or something like
He's
that.
on the goddamn Jets. He's going to have a great year.
Okay, bad example. Example.
That's right. Let me put my jet hat back on.
Austin Hooper.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, tight end is that tricky position.
For sure. Yeah. Hannah, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I just think that, there just aren't a lot. And so if you end up falling into average Joeism, where, you can probably get by with a random pickup each week and just roll the dice and see what happens.
Yeah. And what do you guys think about having backups on your bench, right? Like, I go back and forth whether or not to have like a backup tight end on my bench. It just it really does depend. But do you often make space for that?
I don't think I've ever had a backup tight end.
No.
Unless I had one on a hot streak and there was a bye week. Hot streak and there was a bye week.
I think I've definitely had backups of things. I think I've had backup tight ends because I think it was kind of, there was one season where I think that it was just like, I got a tight end that was just like the average Joe thing. And it was that sort of like, okay, so now I've got two kind of like average Joe players that I'm like, well, which one do I think is going to do better this week and play that one instead just to like see what happened. But I feel like I've had people get injured like early on. Now the last few seasons that I'm like, let me load up. I'm going to have 4 quarterbacks. Don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like, I will be ready.
Yeah, I definitely would never have like a plan to roster 2 tight ends. But if I was in a draft and I felt like a really good tight end was on the slide, maybe, and I like didn't have many needs, I'd be like, okay, I'll scoop this guy up just because. But other than that, definitely, I just want to rock with one tight end usually.
Yeah.
There's only so many decisions you can make, right? Like in a given week, not including fantasy football and just like your life. You just don't want to be overwhelmed with having to make too many choices.
Right.
Hey, do you wish you were a thoughtful card person but don't have the time or energy? Right? You want to be that person that has a hobby, full-time job, crushing it in the job, has kids, has a family, has a dog, whatever it is, and still, right, sends that message, sends a card, handwritten, something that makes you laugh and cry. How does that person do it? I don't know. But maybe it's Cardist. Maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Cardist. The Cardist Studio is your personal assistant. That's how you get it done, right? Somebody helps you out with it. That's okay. The end result is still the end result. You're thinking, oh, should I send them a card? That's it. From there, you just jump onto thecardiststudio.com and tell them exactly what just popped in your head. Your thoughtfulness. The Cardist Studio will get your personalized message handwritten into the card and in the mail for you. You're busy. You're doing a lot of other things. It's not like they're going to tell on you. And the person's going to be thrilled. I've gotten one of these and it filled my heart with joy. Even better, it's fast, it's custom, and it's a total life changer. Hey, you're a thoughtful card person now. Look at you. New achievement unlocked. Just go to thecardiststudio.com and you can even use the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off all orders. One of the last questions I have for you guys is, so part of playing fantasy football is like the talking shit text that you send around, when you're playing someone, and like the sometimes, when you blow it and you have to send the like good game, how do you guys approach that? Do you like to talk shit, or does that like the potential that you have to send that?
Shit enough.
You don't think we do?
No.
Okay.
I think we could step it up.
Great. I love that.
I feel like I started because like on the app, there's like the message board thing. And I remember being like, I think it was like 3 weeks in a row I like said something and no one ever responded. And I
feel like I never checked there.
Like I don't think anybody did. I think I was the only one.
You got something to say, Cripps. You texted right to me. All right, let's go.
I just, which, I think it's fun because I always kind of like expect to not do well. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's fine.
Well, I think there's something to that.
Great.
I think it's easier to, like, if I feel like I'm going to beat somebody, I don't want to reverse jinx myself with the bad karma. But if I feel like I'm going to lose, maybe I will talk so much shit. Just
That's
because,
That's how you
why
operate.
not? But just because, fuck you, that's why,
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Hannah, what's it like with Steven, your husband, for the listeners? Like when you guys are playing each other this week? I know it can get tough when the Raiders are playing the Steelers, but is fantasy similar?
I would say the first in real life Steelers Raiders game that we went to was in the Oakland Coliseum. The Steelers lost, and on the train ride home, I left his family text thread. So that's how
Nice.
mature I handled it. I would say I'm a sore loser, and when you throw the Steelers, and I'm the sorest version of myself.
Yeah.
And then with fantasy, we can really rally behind each other because we're like, one of us has to win the monies, like we just want one of us to win the monies. So like we can really like, we kind of help, we'll root for each other. When
Okay,
we play
it's a
each
little more
other,
civil.
we can kind of joke around, house divided, blah, blah, blah. But a lot more civil, which is nice that we have that fantasy world where we can like enjoy each other. Because when it's like real life Steelers Raiders, it's just garbage. We're garbage people.
Right.
So.
Oh man, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm wondering if anyone has anything else they'd like to throw out about their fantasy football strategy or something that Joe said before we wrap up here.
Well, I think we kind of talked about it a little bit, but he just said, the don't go with the, mainstream thing, which like do some of your own research, don't go with the mainstream, all that kind of stuff. But like in regards to anxiety, it's like, no. I would like to go with the mainstream. I want to do the thing that everybody thinks I should be doing that is like sound, that seems like the correct option. So it is just like, okay, that doesn't help me deal with, striking out and making not your own decisions, but that thing when you're unsure, and that's what's causing some of the anxiety to then feel like I know exactly what to do. You're like, I don't fucking know what to do. So it's just kind of, it's good advice, but it is one of those things that I'm like, being more self-assured in your draft pick or, your drafting or whatever it is I think, a good thing to remember, that it's like, just because this person said it's bad and this person said it's bad, or good, like just do it. Let's see what happens.
Right. And doing your own research is how we got QAnon. So,
yeah.
There you go.
That's how I do research.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird draft this year, guys. Buckle up. Just kidding.
I guess my word for this draft that I've already iterated today. Let's keep it simple. Players on good teams. I'm not gonna. I'm saying this now mostly for myself. I'm not gonna have players on the Jaguars this year. I'm not gonna have Houston Texans and Detroit Lions this year. New York Giants this year. We're gonna have players on good teams. Damn it, good teams score a lot of points. Let's just keep it there. 1 + 1 = 2, Matt.
We'll play this back for you so you can listen to it before the draft.
When I'm fucking sitting there, oh God, being like, but the Titans, they made the playoffs.
They're my favorite team. I love light blue.
Those are my boys.
Yeah.
You're just gonna draft the Chiefs, Period.
There you go.
Just the
I
whole
was like,
Chiefs.
hey,
Okay, wait, one more thing.
Hey!
One more thing. Okay, one more thing before I go. Bold prediction. The Chiefs are not going to make the playoffs this season. I said it.
Ooh, I like
I
that.
think
Wow.
they'll still be a good fantasy producing team though.
I can't wait for them to win the Super Bowl and then to just play this clip back.
And then you'll have 2 clips to play back.
Yeah.
I hope they make the playoffs.
There you go.
I
But,
think Juju
but you know,
have
that's
a
the thing.
wonderful
They've been
fantasy.
good.
They've been
It
good.
might not happen.
They
Yeah.
are good.
Have you seen Patrick Mahomes? What's Patrick Mahomes' brother? Has he been around town? Have you bumped into him?
The
I have
TikTok
not.
guy.
Okay. Yeah.
His
Nah, I
name's
feel like you should
Jackson.
hang out with him.
Yeah. Jackson. That's right.
He
Yeah.
seems like a mess. What is he like? 18 and stupid? Sorry. That's
Nice. Get him.
Sorry. He'll grow up. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys,
Patrick Mahomes
it's
seems like a
been
very nice man.
awesome hanging out with you and being able to pull off your draft strategies so that I can use it for my own, so that I can win the money and
Sure.
lord it over.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
having
Thank
us.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Patrick.
Oh man, fantasy football drafts are coming up. You know, I like I said in the interview, I feel like I've been pretty rigid in the past. I'm going to try to loosen it up a little bit this year. I've never won a fantasy football league, and I've been doing it since I graduated high school in like 2008. I think that, not 2008, 2004. Jeez, that's when I graduated undergrad. I think that's pretty much when it started. It was like starting to catch on. In college is when I really started doing it. I think I'm drafting one of my leagues 2 days before the season starts, right? They have that Thursday game, which is good because you'll know about a lot of the injuries and trades, if there are any, and waiver wire pickups from teams. Like, the teams will be set, at least for week one. So thank you to Alyson, Matt, Hannah, and also thank you to Joe. Okay, before I get to the weird thing that was causing me anxiety this week, I just want to remind you of my other podcast called That Space Filling the Void. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. There's the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. It's a way to make a donation, big or small. You know, that's why it's called Buy Me a Coffee. Because it could be $2. You know, you thought it was a good episode. It's always very much appreciated. There's also the link for Instacart, which you can sign up in the description. And if you do it that way, it tells Instacart that this show sent you, which also helps support the show. Then we're also supported by My Software Tutor, who's offering the promo code POD20 for 20% off your order. Get yourself a little bit better at Excel, some other programs. And the Curtis Studio has the promo code AnxietyPod for 10% off your order. So yeah, the weird thing that was causing me anxiety this week. So I needed to move a bush so that the fence could be connected to the house. And I get it out, you know, get the bulb out so I can replant it just a little bit further down the mulch bed. And my face is pretty close to the base of the house. And I turn to my left, and there's a giant spider. Giant spider. And like, I've been having back problems, and I've been going to a chiro, which mixed results, right? But the second I saw that, I did a backflip. Just like rolled backflips, like just complete evasive maneuvers. It's just crazy how quick like adrenaline goes from your brain and into the muscles, just like instant out of there. Because if it was going to touch me, it was going to touch my face. And if it touched my face, I was going to scream like the guy from Home Alone. And if I scream like the guy from Home Alone, I'm going to have to move because, I'm new to this neighborhood and we just bought this house and I have to live here. I don't want to be the wimp of the block. You hear that guy, like a spider was near him and he screamed like that? That's bad press. That's real bad press. There is such a thing as bad press, and that's bad press. Oh, as always, thank you so much for listening. Good luck with your fantasy football drafts, unless your name is Matt, Hannah, or Alyson. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you on Thursday.